We have with us here Channels TV data information analyst Babajide Ogunsowo. You've been looking at how the conventions are taking place all around, and looking specifically at the PDP convention taking place in Port Harcourt. What have you found?
Several things. Just like the party chairman has just told us, I think the unofficial theme of this convention is how to knock out President Muhammadu Buhari. And in the next 48 hours, we'll find out if they'll be able to get a candidate that can do that. So they have two things that they're trying to focus on. First is which candidate can win the primaries, and more importantly, which candidate do they believe can defeat President Muhammadu Buhari. And by next week, once we know whichever candidate they've picked, we'll then be able to look at whatever strategies that both parties will use. But there are three things Nigerians are really concerned about. The first is, who are the delegates? The second is, where are these delegates? And the third is, what factor should influence the candidate that the PDP should choose? The first is, who are the delegates? Three categories. We've got the party representatives. They are the board of trustees, former board of trustees, members of the National Working Committee, former members of the National Working Committee. It's a long list. You've got National Assembly candidates, party chairmen across all the 774 local governments. That is the largest block. Every party chairman across every local government is a delegate. And then we also have an additional person that comes from each of the local governments. So that's the largest block among party representatives. The second is the 14 governors and their deputies. The reason why that second category is important is because the 14 states control approximately half of all the delegates. So it will be clearly interesting to see if the governors will go with a consensus. As of yesterday night, it wasn't clear if there will be a consensus. The third category are the state and how federal legislators.
Let's compare notes here. From the northeast, we have a person in Atiku Abubakar. From the northwest, you have somebody, Kwankwaso. But Kwankwaso has, there are about 11 million votes, as to Atiku with about 8 million votes. How do you see this playing out in this convention, if they have to consider who must come against Buhari?
So they have to first consider where are Buhari's strengths. And do you want to play in areas that is strong in, or you want to play in areas that is not strong in? So we need to look at, there are 7 candidates contesting for this seat in the northwest. You have 3 in the north central, and you have 2 in the northeast. But before we go into exactly how Buhari has been winning and how he's been losing, is to look at today, what's their ranking on Twitter, for instance, among all these 12 candidates. And the poll shows that number 3 comes Rabiu Kwankwaso. So he's got 54,000 followers on Twitter. Number 2 is Bukola Saraki. He's got 1.3 million followers on Twitter. And as of this morning, here's what Twitter says. Atiku Abubakar has got 1.5 million followers. And so if it's based on Twitter's ranking, based on number of followers, then we can clearly see the candidate that has the most number of followers. But when we come to the zonal preferences, we need to look at what is going on in the northwest, north central, and northeast. In the northwest, what has happened since 2003? 2003, President candidate Buhari scored 6.6 million votes. He not only defeated the sitting president, he defeated 2 other candidates from the northwest, MD Yusuf and Barabre Musa from the PRP. Same thing happened in 2007. It was so difficult that INEC did not release the results of the 2007 election. And in 2011, as well, President Buhari won the northwest. So it does seem that if I were President Buhari, I'll be very comfortable for the PDP to pick a candidate from the northwest, because that is his comfort zone. That is an area where it is extremely difficult for him to lose. And again, going by even several research studies, Professor Antonio Damasio and Robert Seraldini have clearly shown that it's hard for people to change their minds. So if the PDP does want to win, yes, even though there's no guarantee that any candidate from the northeast, either Atiku Abubakar or Danko, will defeat President Buhari, it does seem that a candidate from the northwest, President Buhari, will be more comfortable with facing such a candidate. Let me just make this very practical. Tomorrow, Manchester United will be facing Newcastle at Old Trafford. Now, if I were a bookie or a gambler, Gimba, there's some evidence that will show me what to do. First is, in all 22 times that Newcastle has traveled to Old Trafford, they've only won once. Now, if I were to place a bet, will I still want to place on Newcastle, even though there's no guarantee that Man U would win. But if the odds and history shows that Man U never loses at Old Trafford, especially when they play against Newcastle, what will I do? So the evidence we have today shows that President Muhammadu Buhari doesn't lose in the Northwest. And if the PDP does want to win the presidential elections, then they need to come up with not just a vision, but a strategy. So within the next 48 hours, we'll clearly know
determine
if
how
it'll be from the Northwest, the North Central,
will come
or
out with someone
or
who
the North.
can
But the
stand
evidence does
against
show clearly who can win.
Okay. That's a good place to let it rest. Babachide Ogunsowo, Channels TV data information analyst. And that's how the show has been today. Thank you also for being part of it. I'm Gimba Umar.
Now I'm Nel Taigwe. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a great day, everybody. I'm Ajuri Ngalale.